Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's another Wednesday. I'm actually back. So we're ready to do another episode of the WTF Weekly Tech Forum, sponsored by Love My Tool. Today we have a very special topic, and it's actually something that we've been, in some way, we've been planning this for about a year now. I remember towards the end of the last year when we had a year-end show, we also had Chris Greer on. Chris is, of course, one of our writer, and also has his own company, Packet Pioneer, and we were talking about what would be an interesting topic to explore. And I remember Chris mentioned about network planning, and he thought that well, actually, it was a combination of network planning and budget planning. Which is, how do you actually plan for something that you know is going to happen, but for some reason people just don't do it. And today, Chris managed to invite one of his friends, and we have Zack Belcher from Flute Networks. So Chris, why don't you talk about network planning, and then also introduce Zack to us. Also, the rest of the panel includes Paul. Good evening, Paul. Paul Orford from Event 7.
Hi.
And Tim O'Neill, and who just lost his name banner again. So
whole thing went away.
Yeah. Anyway, so Chris, take it from here.
Okay, thanks, Denny. That sounds good. So that actually was a good reminder of our conversation from last year. We were talking about some of the things that we run across out there, and this is definitely one coming from my perspective. Now, keep in mind, as a consultant, I go into new environments, and I'm called in to help people solve different issues. So I definitely come from that perspective. But something that I see as a constant theme, it seems that no matter what the issue is that we're trying to get a handle on, be it slow network, slow application, loss of connectivity in some way, it seems like usually something that they like to tack on to what I'm there to do is to get a handle on what their present usage is of their connections, both internally on major switch-to-switch links and also externally going out to their service provider. And they not only want to know, so what's happening there, but am I filling the pipes? And if I am, what is it? And also moving forward, am I justified in dumping all this money, directing some of my precious IT budget to an upgrade? If I do upgrade, is that really going to help things work faster? Or, if I go up by a magnitude of 10, 1 gig to 10 gig, for example, am I going to see any type of improvement? So there's this constant theme of just an awareness of what type of traffic is running on their networks. I think all of us know, no matter how much we assume, there's protocols running on the background, there's noise running on the background, employees are using different applications that may or may not be things that we're aware of. So for me, a lot of times I'll spend time doing that, analyzing traffic that's going across key mission-critical links, and help them to get an idea of how they're using their present capacity, and if going forward with an upgrade would be something that would be a good use of their time and their money. And typically with customers, I find that they fall into one of three categories. Sometimes I go in terms of visibility, they have absolutely no visibility for utilization or the type of traffic that is traversing those links. So that's something that I'll work with them to help them get a handle on. But then I find another type of user, another type of customer is someone that has an SNMP based product. So they're able to tell system-wide, both internally on those major links and externally out to their service provider, they're able to tell the amount of utilization they have. But something that they can't tell is just from the SNMP based tool that they're using, they can't tell what is going across the link. So if they see their edge connection, if it goes up to 90% utilization, or if it has certain spikes throughout the day, they can see, okay, I have this spike in capacity. I have this, some of my capacity, my bandwidth is being eaten up. The problem is I don't know what it is. I don't know if my users are spending all day on YouTube downloading videos, if they're doing BitTorrent, if they're doing non-authorized activity, or if it generally is business related, and that's something that I should continue to support. The bottom line there is, if they upgrade their connection, are they just enabling more bad behavior? Am I throwing more bandwidth at it and just allowing them to do bad behavior faster? Or am I actually going to help my business do better and enable better productivity by throwing more bandwidth at it? So that's another type of customer that I run into. And then we also have a third type. That's where they may have an SNMP-based tool. They might even have like a Netflow-based solution. So now we can see how much is there, and we might even be able to tell what it is. But what can get difficult there is deciding how long is it high, what percentage of the time of the day does it spend at 90 utilization, for example. Because that conversion isn't necessarily a bad thing as long as it's not directly impacting application performance. What if it just spikes to 90 for a second, then comes back down and it sits at 10% for the rest of the day? Is that a link that we need to throw money at? Well, not necessarily, but it's helping people get that type of visibility to really make an educated decision in terms of capacity and how to direct their money. So coming from my side, from the consultant side, that's a need, a very clear need that I see out there in the industry. And from my business, that's been something that I've been providing to my customers. Now, I don't know if there's anything that I missed that you guys want to throw in there in terms of the problem setup and the frustration that people run into. But at this point, I'd like to toss the baton to my friend Zack Belcher. Maybe, Zack, do you mind introducing yourself and maybe developing that conversation a little further?
Yeah, absolutely. So good morning, afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Zack Belcher. I'm product manager with Fluke Networks, and I'm responsible for a product called TrueView, which is all of the demonstrations you'll see today and the features that I'll be talking about will be inside of that TrueView product. And one of the core capabilities that it has is to help customers get that better understanding that Chris was just talking about in terms of where should or how should I manage that IT spend? Where should I be allocating my resources to? And I probably should set the stage and be clear about what type of capacity planning we're talking about and kind of differentiate, because there's that capacity planning where you talk about, hey, first of all, not even network, talk about servers and virtualization and that kind of stuff. We're not talking about that. We're purely talking about how do I know where I should invest my next round of funding in my WAN budget, right? And we're also not talking about, because it'll probably come up later on, we're also not talking about the predictive use case either. This is purely those assessments that we do where we go, all right, here's how much I'm spending on all of these WAN links. We have this much budget. Am I right-sized? Am I imbalanced? How do I tell? How do I assess what I've got, what I've been looking at over time, and get an understanding of, we don't have enough here, we have too much over here. Right? Utilization's high here, it's low here. How do I rebalance that? And that's one of the use cases that we're going to really focus in on during this session, because that's one of the areas that we have a fantastic capability to help our customers get a better handle on. So we'll take a look at some unique functions there. I guess I'll kind of flip it back to you guys. This is my first time on the show, and again, thank you for having me. Would I be better served for your audience kind of going over what is the product first, or should we focus more on just kind of better understanding that capacity planning scenario first before we start diving into how we might solve this?
Well, Zack, why don't you go ahead and set up your screen sharing, and
Yeah.
if I may, I want to ask Paul just a quick question and maybe some comments. What do you think would be good to go in the next 20 minutes or so?
I'm interested to know the problems that I see people facing are there is an issue about measurement and the capture of the data, but there's also the issue of interpretation, because if I've got I mean, there's so much naivety out there as well. So, for example, I come across customers who say, well, we've checked the load on our WAN links, it's low. Okay, what do you mean by low? Well, it's below 15%. well, what's your sample period? And then what is a sample period, you know?
Yeah.
And so you find out that this is a figure that they've been given by their network service provider that's averaged over 15 minutes. And in 15 minutes, it could be going flat out for 5 minutes and then doing nothing for the next 10. So, you know, there's so much misunderstanding around this. So I think understanding those important little metrics is, I'd love to hear about that. And the other thing is, so what's the threshold? At what point would you say, I need to upgrade? In hard figures, you know? That's what I'm interested in.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and I think to add to that too, just another comment. Well said, Paul. Also, will this upgrade? If I do it, can I make an educated decision based on fact that will really help me see performance improvement? Can I prove that this spike in activity or this measurement right now is degrading my performance, or am I just making a guess?
Yeah.
So.
Sure.
Yeah, one thing I've seen though is you've got two types of customers out there. I call them leaders and laggers. You got people that are thinking ahead. They're the people who do forward thinking. They look at what's going on in their network. They test applications before deployment. And then I got the laggers. They're the ones who, you know, are what I call the head slappers. Oh, something's wrong with my network. Oh, I better check capacity. You know, and you have WAN capacity, LAN capacity, VLAN capacity. It's just people just, to me, don't think ahead because they're too busy fighting fires, and they really believe that capacity planning is something close to quantum physics. And I just don't. I think it isn't. I think it's something that everybody should do.
Also, Tim, I thought I mentioned it, is what you and I call stupid. Paul, the diplomatic, call it naive. So that's the difference between billable hours and non-billable hours. Okay, Tim, you learning something today? All right, so let's turn that to Zack now. He's ready for us.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, those are all fantastic questions. We're absolutely going to take a look at those, and I do like the quote of it's not, people think it's quantum physics. I have a slide that very much covers that. So I think what I'll do then is just to set the stage, because I think a lot of times you start talking about, you just go into your products and you start showing pages and screenshots and people go, whoa, hold on, what is that? How'd you gather that data? So I'll do a very, very, very quick overview of what is the product and how does it collect the data, because I know you guys are all technical audience and so is your customer, or so are your users. So let me just go right into what TrueView is. It is a product, like many others that you've seen, I'm sure, trying to answer this question of, okay, the network is slow, where do we even begin to troubleshoot? Because I bet as a power network user, you probably have the ability to look into and analyze all of these different components of the network. You've probably got tools, or you can log directly into every one of these devices and analyze this information, but the question still becomes, someone's saying it's slow, where do I even start looking? Where's the first place to go to? Because at the end of the day, all of these are looking at individual elements of the network. How do you look at the overall time it takes to get from point A to point B? And that's where we introduced TrueView. So that's the product we'll be looking at today. It is a single product, and the goal with TrueView when we designed it was to build something that would replace what has traditionally been 5 different data sources or 5 different complete tools that customers would traditionally buy. So inside of a single product here, we're doing response time analysis. That's where we're actually monitoring the response time that your users are getting on their production applications. So it's actual packet analysis of response time to tell you, here's where things are outside of normal. Here's what this site's performance looks like compared to normal. We do tie that to the retrospective packet storage, so we're also streaming those packets to disk when you tell us, hey, I see that it's really slow in Austin today. Can you show me the packets that were going across the wire for those users? Absolutely. We've stored that for you as well if you want to get to that deep dive level, or you've got yourself a Chris Greer on site, you've got your packet head ready to take a look at that data. We also have network traffic analysis. Chris alluded to that a little bit earlier, that flow analysis, being able to see what traffic is going across a link, get that better understanding of utilization, not just, hey, it's 80% utilized, but who's doing it, where were they going. And we also integrate that in with that device performance because, I mean, a lot of times that's what you build a foundation on top of, right? You got to at least know the health of the devices, what's their CPU, memory, interface utilization. And then we're also combining that with an understanding of voice over IP quality. We're seeing increasing penetration. It's taken a while, right? But we're finally at this point where, VoIP really is almost everywhere now. Pretty much everybody's getting a little bit of VoIP now. So that's built into the solution as well. And the goal being, it's a single product. You can actually deploy this in a single box. But for some of our largest customers, we of course distribute these functions out. And it's all in a single UI. You're not going to, hey, right-click, go to a different area for packets, right-click, go to a different area for Netflow, open up a different UI to look at voice over IP. It's all in one single place. Now, inside of all of that, we do an amazing job of capacity planning, and that's what I'll focus in on today. The capacity planning data is primarily focused on, if I highlight areas of the puzzle here, areas of the pinwheel here, primarily going to come from that understanding of network traffic analysis and that SNMP data that we get to look at the raw utilization statistics from those interfaces. And that's where we'll drill in and start to answer some of those questions that you guys had around what's the granularity of this data, how do I ensure that this is accurate, when should I care about this, and we're also going to tie in that response time data to get that understanding of that use case that Chris mentioned of how do I know if I should care? How do I know if this is impacting users? Just because I see utilization is high, does that matter? Well, why don't we look at the response time and get an understanding and see if anybody was impacted? So that hopefully kind of gives you a quick understanding that it's a single box, or can be a single box, that's gathering all these different types of data, whether it's span, flow, and SNMP coming in from your enterprise, right? From all these different endpoints. So with that said, I will throw up only one more very, very, very brief slide deck just to kind of set the stage of the capacity planning mindset that we've been talking about. We've kind of set the stage a little bit already that, hey, we're talking about delivering quality end user experience, but also balancing that with managing our IT spend. And a lot of times our customers are challenged with figuring out and maintaining that balance. They're trying to figure out where do I have the least room for growth and what's consuming that resource, and where do I have the most room for growth, and we'll take a look at those. Now, typically what we see are two different approaches within the industry, and I think that I think you guys kind of alluded to these with your questions earlier. We have the customers who kind of overthink it, if you will, that they turn it into what do you call it, rocket surgery, brain science, right? They turn it into quantum physics, and they go, okay, I need you to give me all the data for the last 6 months, but I need the 95th percentile, the min-max, all the standard deviations, and I want to fit all these regressions to it, and they output this big, long report over on the left-hand side that they're doing their statistical analysis on to try and figure out, at the end of the day, where do I have the least room for growth. Then you've got the other approach, and we actually have some case studies that users were actually doing this, where it just becomes a simple use case of, you know what, guys, let's not overthink this. If the link is hitting 80%, let's upgrade. Let's load up the money catapult and throw some money at it, right? Let's just buy some more bandwidth because it's heavily utilized, therefore we need more room, right? So those are typically the two approaches that we're seeing out in the industry, and it really just depends upon the individual customer. Now, I'm sure there's other approaches within that, but you guys tell me if I'm wrong on that one. Does that kind of resonate? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would say
sure,
that.
I'd say so.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate.
Okay. So what I'll do now is I at least had to stop for a second. I was babbling on. I was like, I want this to be a little more interactive.
Well, one comment I just want to make is that usually when you look at it from a vendor side, most people might say, well, okay, if the customer wants to throw money at it, what's the problem, right? More money, more product, more sales. But that's actually not always true. Just because the customer have money doesn't necessarily mean that the money goes in your pocket. We actually prefer customers that are more knowledgeable, right? So that's why customers know why they're spending their money, not just that they have money to spend. Because just because they have money to spend, that doesn't mean that they necessarily spend on you.
Yeah, absolutely. We want them to be able to spend it where where it's the wisest to spend it, right? Not just spend it because they have it, right? But make that decision wisely.
Correct.
Right, and I can echo that for sure. Like sometimes I'll get called in because they've already gone through a tremendously expensive upgrade cycle to make things better, and it didn't work. So now they're sitting on this monster bill they paid, but hey, it's still slow. So, you know, just more intelligently directing the dollars is a good thing for everyone.
Right.
So with that said, I'll go ahead and log into the TrueView UI. It's a web portal, as you can see on my screen over here on the share, and I'll just kind of maximize that so everybody can get the whole thing. I'm inside of our capacity planning page. I'm going right into the meat of the product here. I'm under network performance. This is a pre-built page. You don't have to do anything to make this happen out of the box. And I'm in our capacity overview screen. So this is how I would have arrived here. And let me talk about a little bit about what we're showing. This is a representation of the utilization of different links within your enterprise. Now, the beauty of this, or the difference in what you're seeing, is that this represents is color-coded. I'll scroll down so it's not all the solid red ones. I'll pop that up. Hopefully you can see. The colors represent the amount of time that each link was between different utilization levels. So we've bucketized the utilization, and you can see that green is less than 30%, yellow is 30 to 60%, 60 to 80 would be orange, and then anything that's above 80% utilization is red. Now, first and foremost, that should give you a quick visual indication of, okay, which links are the heaviest utilized. Now, nothing too fancy so far. The unique aspect of this is that this data is always 1 minute granularity. And that's where we typically see the challenge when we talk about capacity planning and we start overthinking and doing statistical analyses, is our customers are trying to balance this need for, I need to look at a large time frame, I need to look at the last 6 months, the last quarter, or the last month, but I really can't keep my 1 minute polled values for that long because it's so intensive to keep all that data. So they do these roll-ups and they do statistical deviations. You brought up a great point earlier about, hey, you know, if it's 15-minute granularity, how can you plan off of that? Because it could have been spiking all over the place inside of that average of 15 minutes. Well, that's exactly why we focused in on this use case of this data must always be 1 minute granularity, and we keep that for 13 months so that you can do a full calendar year of capacity planning analysis on these interfaces. So when you're looking at this and you see that, I chose a 30-day time interval here, when you see that this is 9 days and 11 hours between 80 and 100% utilization, you know that that is accurate down to the minute level. All right, so that's the first kind of unique approach to this, is let's take something that used to be very difficult and make it very simple. The next step is to say, okay, what are the other things we need to do within capacity planning? Well, I better be able to filter out and show just business hours. I want to be able to ignore, it could be either way. It could be that you want to ignore spikes in bandwidth at night because you're doing backups and, you know, okay, I don't really want to count that as, you know, overutilization. Or maybe that, of course, during the middle of the night, you got a bunch of 1 or 0% utilization averages, and that's going to bring the average down. So if I want to say during working hours only and change that analysis, I can do that. So we do have the ability to do business filters. And then the next question is going to be, okay, what is that traffic? And this is what Chris brought up earlier. Maybe you've got that customer that's already got that S&MP visibility. How do I ensure that when I make my upgrade, I'm not just rewarding bad behavior within my users? So if I click on a link, the next step in the workflow is to show you what those top protocols are on that link. And that, of course, is going to come from Netflow Data so that you'll be able to see who are the top talkers, who are the top, or what are the top applications. And in this case, I am actually seeing we've got our top app is a business application. It's our ERP app. However, I'm seeing a very significant amount of the traffic is actually VoIP and then YouTube traffic. So I actually do see a lot of internet traffic on this link, and that may be something that instead of immediately upgrading bandwidth, I want to instead look at approaches like deploying QoS, blocking that traffic, shaping that traffic, or maybe just a nicely worded email or not so nicely worded email about what IT resources should or should not be used for. So that's where you can get into that alternative of, instead of just throwing money at the bandwidth problem, saying, you know what, maybe we could better use our resources by identifying what traffic is there and then intelligently controlling our network or managing our network to say, this traffic shouldn't be here, or if it is here, it's deprioritized, and I'm not going to let it impact the rest of my applications. As I scroll down, sorry, it also shows the top hosts as well if there's frequent top talkers. Now, if I want to get further detailed on this, this is still kind of in the high-level capacity view that just says, hey, show me the top 5 or 6 hosts, right, or top 5 or 6 protocols. But I can always drill in. Our Netflow data is incredibly granular. I can always drill into the interface detail page and actually see all of the raw Netflow. If I want to break it out and see every single host, every single protocol, every single conversation, I can do that as well. So it's a very full-featured solution on when we start drilling into these other data sources of really just focusing in on Netflow, for example. One of the things that we pride ourselves on is we keep every single flow. So a lot of times when you look at Netflow solutions, they're doing top 10 protocols, top 10 hosts, or maybe they're doing top 100 even. When we get Netflow, we keep top everything. So this is all the raw flows, and you're able to see thousands and thousands and thousands of conversations and hosts and protocols within that. So you're not just limited to, well, you're just looking at the top talker.
Zach, one thing I do like is it helps you actually break out the areas of concern. It delineates each one so finitely so you can easily go in and say, hey, I am concerned about this application or this event taking up too much bandwidth or this user.
Absolutely. I've probably given my demo system a bit too large of a request doing the last 30 days over the VPN here. There we go. So yeah, this is just as you start to drill in further on that Netflow analysis, and this it's really just trying to say, at the beginning of the workflow, this should be something that should just be a, hey, identify your worst, your ones that are showing up as the most red, right? And then from there, if you need to go deeper, if you need to analyze every single conversation on a link, you can do that. You have that capability. You may not need to every time, right? We would hope that decision could be more upfront from that initial workflow. The other side of things is maybe you want to get an understanding of what Chris mentioned earlier of how do I know if this is impacting my end users, right? I have all these spikes in traffic that are occurring. How do I know if that's causing performance issues for my end users? Well, again, we're looking at a single product that's able to tell you what is the response time, the Netflow, the SNMP, the VoIP, all of these different aspects of data collection. So if I just type in, I was looking at the Madrid interface. If I just type in Madrid up in our search bar on the top right, I can look at the overall site performance for that location and start to see, hey, do I have performance issues? Because when we look at a site, we're first and foremost going to look at what is the response time of my end users, right? What kind of response time are they getting? So if I zoom out to, I'll go to a larger interval here, see more of the day. Am I seeing reoccurring response time issues at this location? Yeah, actually, you know what? I do. And here's that data rate we were just looking at. This is the SNMP utilization trend right next to my response time trend. That exactly coincides with all of those spikes in YouTube traffic that we were seeing. So there's my smoking gun that this is impacting my users. Instead of just going, well, utilization is high, I guess I either better get rid of that utilization by blocking it or upgrade my bandwidth. You can actually see utilization isn't always an issue, as Chris mentioned earlier. What you care about is it impacting the end user, right? You care about utilization when it's causing congestion, when it's causing queue delay, not necessarily just because utilization is there.
And Zach, while you're here on this screen, do you mind explaining and breaking out the end user response time breakdown? What's that showing us?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we monitor packets coming into the device, we're at time of collection, we're identifying how much time is spent on the application side how much time is spent on the network side, and how much time is spent transferring data, that download time. And that's what you're seeing there is that stack represents how much is application think time, how long does it take to deliver the data, right, the whole request that they asked for, and how long is an individual round trip of the network. And that allows you to quickly identify not just that time is increasing, but also get that understanding of where is it increasing. Because when you talk, switching gears a little bit here, when you talk about troubleshooting, a lot of times the longest part of the process is just figuring out, gosh darn it, who's supposed to be fixing this issue? Is this a network issue? Is this an app issue? Server issue? Who's responsible for this? So we like to break that out immediately so you get that quick problem domain isolation to say where are you spending the majority of your time and which one has changed its behavior, right? Which one is spiking during that time frame. So a lot of times that's the most valuable part of the troubleshooting process is just get me in the right domain first and foremost, right?
Yeah, I think the challenge there is getting all the different technology teams to agree on one tool. One of the problems you find is that everybody's got their own tool, like the DBA's got his database monitoring tools, and app people have got their tools, and so you can show them the network perspective, but whether they believe you or not is another thing. It can be a bit of a challenge in that way.
So that is a fantastically true point. One of the ways that we help you get around that one, and I'm totally diving off of capacity planning right now. So if we get way too off track, you guys let me know. But one of the things that we do in order to help you bridge that gap between, well, that's just your network tool, I don't trust that, is when we start looking at applications, we actually have an understanding of the application. So it's not just from a, here's a bucketized response time. If I go, what I actually did to get here, guys, I'll just show you real quick. I just typed in the name of the application because you mentioned, an application team may not trust. So I just typed in that ERP web application we were talking about earlier. And now I'm analyzing that application. These are my number of transactions. And if I look at this time frame right here when the blue got really large, the application time is very high over here. If I go ahead and select one of these time intervals, what's going to happen is we are going to leave the world of average response times, and we're actually going to instead deep dive into application transactions. And this is something that's unique about TrueView is we are actually going to show you every single individual transaction that application performed. In this case, it's a web app, so I'm seeing here's the individual GET requests coming into this server and how long they're taking. These are 47 seconds to respond to that request, and a lot of times this kind of information can help bridge that gap because instead of just a generic, hey, it says app time is high, you get a detailed report that you can hand to that other silo or that other area of responsibility to say, hey, I know that you guys are responsible for the website. Look, here's what we're seeing. This GET request came in. Here's the response that came out. Here's how many bytes. Here's how many packets. There's no TCP issues on the network, no retransmissions, no zero windows, no out of orders. And you know what? If you don't want to take my word for it, we've got this as a trace file. Here, I'll export it, and here's just the packets for that transaction. And that helps to kind of make it less about, here's my little product that you don't understand and also doesn't understand your application, and puts it into a term that they understand that says, oh, okay, so you're saying it's that particular area of the website. Or, as you mentioned database. I just flipped this over to Encompass. I did that very quickly. I hit the Encompass button right here. That says, show me the back end. So here is my server IP for that GET request. He's now my client, and I'm looking at requests that server made to other servers. He's hitting Oracle databases and MySQL databases. So it's actually not that this guy is slow on the front end. It's that these are 9-second, 5-second, 4-second response times just to hit these back-end databases, and I can hand this to my database admin and say, hey, dude, why does it take, what did I come up with here? Why does it take 9 seconds in order to do this simple close statement? That doesn't seem normal. Can you take a look at that?
Yeah.
Hey,
Okay.
I wonder if I could kind of move the discussion a bit, and
Yeah.
because we have about 5 to 8 minutes before closing the show, I want to bring it back to some of the comments that Chris made at the beginning, where he was kind of setting up the stage for network planning. I have to believe that network planning is more than just a product feature, right? Because one of the nice things about this show is that we get to invite a lot of our friends and thinkers into the show, talk about their products, and you get to see, you know, a lot of people who knows how to dive into the network, talks about the features, you know, it just really gives you a lot of details about the network. But I have to believe that there's some difference between troubleshooting, which is really a real-time kind of firefighting activity, and network planning, right? Network planning is much more of a lean back, let's get together, create a common language, you know, let's get across department barrier, and that kind of discussion. Isn't that true, Chris? That it is much more of a philosophy.
I'd say so. I really think yeah, maybe there's not as much discussion as there should be about planning. Just like it seems like people are in such a reactive sense that they don't go into that, not necessarily even proactive, but spending enough time really thinking about what is happening today and how can it really be improved. So I completely agree with that, and that's probably something we as an industry can foment more discussion toward. That's something definitely that I try to do with my customers. Just get some visibility, find out what you have, and then we know where we're at and where we need to be. Like, for example, I think, Tim, with you had an article recently about IPv6. I can't tell you how many times we talk to people, so are you running this on your network? Well, no, we're not. Okay, yes, you are. So it's there. So let's find out how much is there, and is it in any way impacting you? And that's just one example, let alone, you know, peer-to-peer file sharing and all these things. Oh, of course that's not happening on my system. Well, yeah, it is. And is it hurting you? So what is there, and is it impacting us? And so that way we can intelligently direct for future decisions. So I completely agree with that. That's something we can do.
But as a consultant, they don't hire you to solve a problem that hasn't happened yet.
Correct. I come in when there's a problem in place, but speaking to what some of those screens that Zach was showing us, the difficulty I have is that I'll come in, and a lot of times after an upgrade has happened and it didn't work, and the reason why that upgrade was, the reason why that decision was made is because someone just brought out their crystal ball and looked into it and decided that their core switch needed to have 10 gig everywhere, and they needed to upgrade their edge to who knows what WAN connection, and it didn't work. So then they're frustrated, they're out of money, and they're like, we just need this problem to go away. So, and another difficulty that I have sometimes as a consultant, I'll go in and I'll see a long response time from an application. I'll see he showed a yellow little bump on a graph. That's data transfer time. It took a long time to get data across this connection. The problem is that as a consultant, I come in with a packet analyzer that's very disconnected from a present system they have, which could be Netflow. It's very difficult to completely equate a high utilization to slowness, especially if that high utilization comes and goes. So I think having a more holistic approach, that's why I'm a fan of a tool like this, because it brings all of that data together, and then with planning, it kind of brings the planning and the troubleshooting together in one package, showing that they're more connected than they previously have been.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the problems also, Denny, is we gotta stop making diagnostics a reactive event. It needs to be more responsive. We need to look at more dimensions. You know, you don't worry about putting a fire suppression system in after you have a fire. And I think people need to look more dynamically at their network. Don't just troubleshoot one user's issue with an application. We've got to have tools like this so we can look through the whole book, the whole file cabinet on what's going on. And I think way too much of troubleshooting today is reactive. You know, my hair's on fire, now I should worry about, should I have a fire extinguisher nearby? And the tools like this help you look in a broader dimension. And I think that's.
Yeah, Paul, how do you in your line of work, how do you get your customers to that more thinking, going from a reactive to a proactive state of mind?
It's very difficult. Because you need, even with the tools, you still need skilled people to do it. The people can be trained to do it, but nobody's prepared to step up to the plate and say, I'm going to fund someone to proactively try and avoid problems. So it tends to always end up as a reactive exercise, and then you've got and when you do get these reactive investigations, it tends to be the different silos just protecting their territories. So it's very technology focused. There's not much end-to-end investigation, which is what Advanced 7, that's what we do. I mean, you know, that's our raison d'etre, if you like, is to perform end-to-end investigations. And we always start from the top. So we start from where the user's eyeballs hit the screen and then drill down into it. Whereas you've got all the technical silos that are basically doing mini health checks on all their kit.
Yep.
And where do they stop? You know, especially if it's an intermittent problem, when are they going to stop health checking? And so what you find is that a difficult performance problem will go on for weeks and months as they keep going through cycles of checking things, changing things to see if it makes any difference. And yeah, I think this is, thankfully, I think this whole idea is coming to an end. I think what Zack has presented, particularly with the response time, you know, the end user experience monitoring, and starting at that point, that's the way forward, and then drill down. To avoid the problems, I think what you said, Denny, is right, that you need a separate group of people that are thinking about how do I make sure I've got adequate resources to drive my business applications, whether it be network, server, storage, whatever.
Hey, Zach, I think we should probably close the show pretty soon. I wonder if you could spend the next 2-3 minutes just take off your TrueView hat for a minute, because you've been with the industry for a long time, you know, working with NetQoS before you joined Fluke, and in my last company we also worked with NetQoS, so I know a little bit about troubleshooting and application performance assurance and that kind of thing. So you're not always in the network planning side. You actually, you know, so when we talk about the world being separate into proactive and reactive, you were actually from the reactive side, right? That's really where NetQoS started. Give us again, you know, take off your product manager hat for a minute. Give us your industry perspective. What do you see in the last 7-8 years? How does the customer progress during that time?
Well, I still see us in largely the same place, unfortunately. A lot of times, you remember that really intricate slide that I showed that had all the, you know, where do you begin to troubleshoot, right? A lot of times when I present that slide, I'll say it's 2014, there's no flying cars, and we're still trying to figure out why the network is slow. It's still happening, right? We're still telling that same story that I was telling at NetQoS 7-8 years ago. There's much better awareness. There's much better understanding that a customer, when we talk to them, they'll say, I need to understand what my end user's response time is, instead of us having to walk in and explain what end user response time is. So that's the shift that I'm seeing right now, is better awareness that it's not enough to just say, I've got polling capabilities on all my devices and I'm the network guy and I understand the network health and that's it. That's all I need to worry about. There's much better understanding that, hey, I need to be able to understand how well my network delivers applications. However, we're still at that point of troubleshooting and trying to be well, a lot of times we're still being reactive and trying to chase down issues that are out there. In terms of where I see it going, I think it's only going to become more complicated because we now have this mixture going on of not all the applications getting rolled out on my network are things that I own anymore. We're seeing more and more things go to the cloud, of course. So whether it's something, you know, obvious like Salesforce.com or anything else that's hosted within the cloud, increasingly the feedback I'm getting from network engineers is, do you have something that's going to tell me, is that slow because it's my network is slow getting out, or is it because it's slow at Salesforce.com or Amazon or whoever's hosting it? Can you help me in that way? So I think that we're going to be solving those problems more frequently. That's going to be an increasing troubleshooting scenario that we're going to be tasked with, whether that's on the consultant side, for you guys, or whether that's on the tools vendors trying to solve that problem from a tool perspective. And we're absolutely, I'm sorry, I was supposed to take off my product manager hat. I'm sorry. We're absolutely targeting that and working on those problems right now as well. I hope that answers the question.
No, that's great. Thanks, Zach. And I like you. I actually like you with your glasses on.
Like the glasses, I was getting a little blurry, so I had to.
It goes with your eye chart in the background, just like after a while, you notice that every one of us have little of these idiosyncrasy. I have a clock in my back that is always accurate somewhere.
Yeah,
Twice a day.
In case you're boring, you have to have something interesting behind you, right? So in case the people have something to look at, right?
Absolutely. Well, I think like I said, I think this show is something that we wanted to have for a long time, and I thank you for coming to the show, and it's Fleet Network has been a sponsor to Love My Tool for a long time now, and as it turns out, many of our authors also have good relationship with Fluke, including Chris Greer, and Tony. But for some reason, we haven't been able to get Fluke on the show. So I hope that this is just the beginning, and that you or your colleagues can come back. We have different format. Today is more about more of a technical issues, a little bit on the product demonstration. But we could have you come back just as an interview, or have you come back as a more of a vendor neutral kind of show. So again, thank you, Zach. But before I close the show, I want to go back to my panel members. So Paul, give us your last thought on this topic.
It's, I mean, in terms of these tools that are integrating more types of data and correlating them, particularly lining them up time-wise, I think that's going to be a great productivity benefit, because at the moment, for example, we do this type of work, but we have to manually correlate data from different sources. So having these tools in place would be certainly speed things up. I'm not really an expert on network capacity, but anything we can do to give an objective view on when we should do upgrades, and as Chris said, if they're going to actually deliver performance benefit, then that's good by me.
Thank you, Paul. And just a quick summary. Who are you, what do you do, and how do we find you?
Me? Oh, Paul. Right. Sorry, me. So I'm Paul Offord. I'm Chief Technical Officer at Advanced 7. We're an IT troubleshooting company. We troubleshoot performance and stability problems, mostly in the UK, but this week I've been in Copenhagen, and we do work in other parts of Europe and sometimes in the US.
Event7.com is your website?
Advanced7.com is our website, yeah. Oh, and also take a look at tribelab0.com. There's some great, we've put some great information on there. We're giving away some tools. We're doing all sorts of things on there. So please visit us, tribelab0.com.
Okay. Thank you, Paul. And good seeing you. Hey, Chris, we don't see you enough here.
I know.
What do I have to do to get you on the show?
Well, your Wednesday tech forum is right in the middle of my Wednesday busyness. That's the problem. But I'll pop in as I love hanging out with you guys and being here, so I'll pop in every opportunity I get.
Okay. Well, you always have an excuse, because besides being a paid consultant, you're also doing God's work. So
trying.
You get a pass.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And in case someone want to throw a bunch of money at you, how do they find you, and what are you good at?
So you can find me probably the easiest way if you're doing this through Love My Tool, if you're watching Love My Tool TV. So I'm an author on Love My Tool. I try to contribute articles from my adventures, from Chris's adventures. And you can find me there. Scroll to the bottom, click on my logo, Packet Pioneer. That'll get you to the website. And what do I do? A lot like Paul, I troubleshoot layers 1 to 7, helping people resolve problems that are plaguing them. And I primarily do that with a packet analyzer and with some other cool tools from different vendors. So that's who I am. That's my game. And otherwise, I'm sitting here talking to you guys on Wednesdays when I can.
Cool. And we should probably, we should have a follow-up and talk about doing a show for newbies. And maybe we should do a different time, maybe Thursday, Friday, whatever. I think we should do that.
Yeah, I think given the response, we've mentioned this before, the response to Newbie Day at SharpFest this year was really good. So we definitely should consider doing that.
Okay, all right. And Tim, buddy, how the heck are you? You going to be alive?
Yep. Hey guys, if you do any kind of travel arrangements through TripAdvisor or any of those unusual device groups out there, change your password immediately, and you may have to change your credit card. They just got hacked last night, or actually the day before yesterday, and they estimate close to 1 million, maybe millions of people's information was stolen. If you use those guys or any of the common vendors out there, might be a good time to change your password.
Tim always have good news for us. I'm all cash now, Tim.
I'm getting that way. I very seldom use credit, but it's getting to the point now where you just have to use cash. But PayPal won't take cash, so
Okay, Zach. I noticed that you had put up a summary slide. Why don't you go through that, and we'll close the show.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to kind of wrap it back up. We kind of took us where the conversation went and talked about a couple other things, which is awesome. But just wanted to summarize the capacity planning information. I won't read through every bullet point. I won't be that guy. The main thing I wanted to say is if you have any further information you want to take a look at the products that were shown today, fluknetworks.com/TrueView, and we actually just put together a dedicated page on this topic. We have fluknetworks.com/capacity planning, where you can get a little bit more in-depth look at the features that I started to show today. And there's video, there's a white paper, there's a brochure, all sorts of cool stuff. There's blogs on the topic, so you can take a look at that to see some of the more detailed information. I did also want to answer. I want to say it was Paul had the question of, is there any indicators within the product of when I should upgrade? There's a little indicator that says, hey, if you're over 10% of the time at 80% utilization, that's when you should take a look at this interface, and we flag those within the UI. So there's some kind of best practices that show up off of the data as well that are indicated within the product. But main thing, guys, take a look at a couple of links if you're interested. I want to say on a personal note, having been my first time joining you guys for a Wednesday session, a lot of fun. Would love to come back. Had a blast. Wish it could be longer. So sorry we have to go.
Well, we definitely look forward to having you back. So with that, we'll close the show. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Zach. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Go out
everyone.
there and be good.